Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another webinar here on Staffing Hub. We're thrilled to have you here today for the webinar 2022 Staffing Outreach Benchmarks and Best Practices. Today's presenters are Sean Chappell, Manager of Customer Success at GEM, and James Temple, co-founder of Emerald Talent, a customer of GEM. GEM is the leading data-driven talent engagement platform. Many staffing agencies like Emerald Talent use GEM to work more efficiently, grow their database, and make more placements by automating manual work, building a current and comprehensive database across your existing recruiting systems, and keeping talent warm for future opportunities. Emerald Talent is a tech recruiting firm that offers on-demand recruitment support and comprehensive technology implementation assistance. Sean and James are here to share the best practices you can apply to win with and without GEM. Without further ado, Sean and James, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Hillary. Hey, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for joining. As Hillary mentioned, so I'm Manager of Customer Success over at GEM. I started my career in the recruiting industry as a legal recruiter, and then spent 10 years at LinkedIn, mostly in the search and staffing vertical. And I'm excited to be joined by James.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. And my name is James Temple. I've been in the recruiting industry for a little over 20 years. Started out agency, then to enterprise like Microsoft and T-Mobile, then to tech startup like Hired, and then on to having my own sourcing and RPO firm for the last few years.
Awesome. So we're going to be talking through outreach best practices that have been pulled from data from GEM's search and staffing customers. If you're not familiar with GEM, GEM is a talent engagement platform that helps agencies use data-driven outreach strategies to work more efficiently and to shorten that time to fill. And with that, here's what we have planned for today. So we're going to talk through, start off talking about timing. When is the best time to send your outreach, but also how do you time your follow-up stages to make sure you're driving response rates? We're going to talk about subject lines. Subject lines are all about driving that open rates, which is going to impact your response rates. We're talking about the pitch. So what do you actually say in the message? What works well? What gets people to actually respond, not just open your message? We'll round out with some more tips. A lot of these tips come from James and James's team, who are really, really creative and really effective users of GEM. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So as questions come up, pop them into the question box in GoWebinar. Awesome. With that, let's jump in. Let's start. Yeah.
I'm excited about this. I was just pulling some reports earlier, Sean, and we've sent a little over 250,000 emails through GEM since we've had it. So I know I didn't share that with you earlier, but we've definitely been putting the herd to it.
That's awesome. Yeah, really, really strong users. Well, cool. Let's talk through what some of the data, GEM's data is telling, and then I want to hear, James, what works really well for that your team has found.
Absolutely.
From our millions of sequences that customers send out, we found that 50% of prospects will open your email within the first 45 minutes after it's sent. Super interesting. We found that Sundays, specifically at 6 p.m., 2 p.m., and noon, have a slightly higher open rate on sequences. Super interesting. This varies, we're going to see, based on the audience that you're reaching out to. I thought that was super interesting. It's really important that we found for customers to really test the audience, when works best for their audience. I know James actually has found some slightly different success based on what his team has found to get open rates and response rates.
Yeah, I think the call out to audience, Sean, is really good. Sales engineers versus marketing people versus software engineers, they all have different work cadence, just flows within their own lives that not all sequences should be considered equal, and highly encourage you to create a sequence for each audience whenever possible, especially with the timing and the follow-ups. And utilizing that time of day is so key. Sometimes you're on the East Coast and your audience is on the West Coast. Letting the sequence go too early could show, let them know that, wow, this isn't coming from a human because it's 4 in the morning or whatever it is. So getting to utilize some of that timing feature is really helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Gem does allow you to configure your sequences in advance, both when that first outreach goes out, but also when the follow-ups go out. And we actually saw some really interesting data around open rates, differing open rates based on the audience that you're reaching out to. You mentioned early morning. We found actually, if you look at like recruiting and HR folks, that 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. have really, really high open rates. Makes a lot of sense. Like those folks are always checking email. That makes a lot of sense. They're probably going to be on their emails, early on in the day. Whereas we see for more tech-related roles, engineering managers, those in data, though they tend to open up their emails at a much higher rate on the weekends, which we thought was interesting. James, what else has your team typically done?
Well, we found a lot of our audience are engineers, so we try to keep our send rates during the middle of the week, just because the open rate doesn't necessarily always correlate to the send rate or send time. But the open rates do matter because when they're opening, they're maybe following up or replying. And if you can be replying within that 25 to 45 minute window, you're going to have them engaging with you real time, as opposed to letting that, so we know time kills all deals, and letting that time run too far out can, let a lead go cold.
Yeah, it really differs. I think the big takeaway here is measuring your sequences and testing what works best for the types of talent you're reaching out to for your own clients. Awesome. So it's not just about timing of that first outreach, but timing your follow-up also has a big impact on the response rates. And actually making sure that you are configuring sequences with follow-ups has a big impact. So from Gem, within Gem, you can configure both your initial outreach, but also how many follow-ups you're going to be sending all up front. And we found that on the first outreach that goes out, we typically see on average a little over 6% reply rate. But by the fourth follow-up, or that fourth email, so your third follow-up, it almost triples. It actually more than triples to almost 19% response rate. Mm-hmm. We don't see a big lift though on that if you're sending a fifth, that fifth follow-up. So like really that sweet spot is sending 3 to 4 total emails in your sequences. James, what does your team typically do?
Yes, this is really powerful data. We typically go for 3 to 4. We don't want to burn them up. A fourth might be a Hail Mary, fall on the sword, hope I'm not disrupting. Here's some extra information, some links so that it can self-service, that type of thing. But we don't want to burn up a potential relationship, so we want to leave on a high note. One of the things I like to tell my team here is when you send the sequence out and you're not seeing that open or reply rate right away, give it some time, let it live out in the wild. It's brand new. It's just learning how to crawl, and it's not running yet. So hiring managers can get a little anxious or excited. They want to know, hey, you've done all that research and that sourcing. You've spent all that time and energy. Where are those results? Well, give it a few days. Be patient before you start really wondering, is my subject line wrong, or is the body of my message incorrect, or did I send too many emails too far apart, that sort of thing. It's important to let it live for a little while.
Yeah. I think structuring your cadence, the time between that stages, has I think also has an impact on your brain. You don't want to come across as being too persistent or like almost like spamming them. You want to give it time for them to read. But you also, persistence is super important.
I think one of the other things to note that's really good about the second and the third follow-ups is there's a little bit of email programming mentally that takes place for us when we start to see that RE colon start to pop up, and there's a little bit of threading that starts to take place.
Yeah.
We're used to, you got to remember the people on the other side of this are looking at their phone or their inbox or Outlook or Gmail or whatever it is. And we're programmed to see and focus in on an email that has, multiple people replying or starting to thread stuff out. And I think that's one of the things that we're starting to realize is we're getting to plug into that activity.
Yeah, yeah. So here's an example of how, like a sequence, how you could structure the follow-up stages in a sequence within GEM. So like waiting one day between your first outreach and your follow-up. We found the sweet spot for driving increased response rates on that stage 3 or that third email is waiting about 6 days. So that's going to actually catch them on a different day of the week. It's also giving them some time to maybe think about it, but it's not coming across as like spamming in their inbox.
Mm-hmm. One of the things my team and I talk about is like how intense should the second stage be? Should the second stage appeal to different personalities or different information, right? So are you feeding more information, or is the second stage just, hey, did you see my first email? We get so busy and we'll see the email and we get distracted, we forget to reply. Sometimes just that second nudge can work wonders. And it's simple, it's short, it's not heavy, and it's not hard to draft, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Some other characteristics of really effective sequences that we've seen based on the data is when you differ the follow-up stages. So as James was mentioning, like changing up what you're saying, but within GEM, you could also actually change who the message is actually coming from. So stage 3, you may, for example, choose for that email to come from someone else. GEM, we call that send on behalf of, and we're going to show a little bit more data around that feature later, because I know James's team uses that a lot. We see a lot of folks also change up, maybe going from email to in-mail for that last stage. So if they're not getting responses from email from the first couple of follow-ups, maybe use that last touch point to send them an in-mail instead.
Yep, we will also use a different stage to have someone chime in on the thread. Maybe this is a perfect time to have a hiring manager say, hey, I checked out your profile on LinkedIn. This is what I was excited about. So it shows that multiple people are involved, and it's just not a one-to-one conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's dive into subject lines. So I think this is the first impression of your sequence to your audience, and really has a big impact on open rates. No one's going to respond unless they actually open the message first. So what gets them to open the message? Here's some examples from sequences that we are seeing with over an 80% response rate. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what some of the characteristics that make really, really effective subject lines. So the first one is personalization. So with GEM, you're allowed to, we enable users or recruiters to personalize using what we call tokens. So this is using information from a candidate's profile or like days of the week that you can automatically insert into the subject line. Also the message that helps personalize that message for everyone you're sending it out to. And there's definitely a sweet spot. We see that if you're using 2 tokens, that actually has a much higher open rate than just using 1 token. We see also a combination of certain types of tokens have increased open rates. So this one's like you include both the company and the title. That has a slightly increased open rate. We find anything that has the first name in that subject line is going to have a much higher open rate than subject lines that don't.
Mm-hmm. We utilize this feature all the time. Years ago, GEM was one of the first tools we came across that allowed you to use these tokens in the subject line. We'd used other tools in the past that had it in the message body, but never in the subject line. And being able to vary your subject line, have each one be different, is a great way to stand out from all the other content we're getting bombarded with on a daily basis.
Yeah, making sure your emails send out is key. Also think about mobile. So like most likely the first place your audience is going to see your sequence is on their cell phone. And thinking, optimizing your subject lines for those smaller screens is key. So we found subject lines with 6 to 8 words, that is that sweet spot. That's where we see over 45% open rate. The open rates drop very quickly the more words you have. Over 9 words is less than a 35% open rate. 12 words is less than a 15% open rate. Makes a lot of sense. If you're not, catching their attention quickly,
yeah,
probably not going to open it.
I encourage my team to spend probably the most time on subject lines, and as compared to like message body or the subject line. We'll, like for HTML web developers, we've used some HTML code in our subject lines, or using dad jokes work really well right now. Keeping it short, testing it, getting to see what it looks like on your device is key. You don't want it wrapping over. You don't want the message to, be turning into ... and they're not able to read the rest of it. Playing around with emojis a little bit. Subject line is key.
Yeah. Appealing to your audience, I like the use of HTML code. That's really clever. That actually does, like, making sure you are appealing to your audience definitely has an impact on those open rates. So again, looking at subject lines with 80% or more open rates. Here's what we've seen, like calling out funding or backers right away. I think that indicates like an exciting new opportunity to grow something. Mentioning roles or seniority. Leading with verbs, action words there, or invoking enthusiasm, all are going to help your subject lines really catch their eye.
Yeah, some stuff we use there is we actually call out the funding on a regular basis, letting someone know what stage an organization's at. If it's for engineers, if it's say greenfield and brand new, or they're going to get to touch X amount of millions of users, something that can give someone the idea of scope is what we try to include as well. Get a hook in there.
Yeah, love it. All right, let's move into the actual message. We're calling this the pitch. How are you actually selling the phone call? So sequence outreach is all about selling the phone call. You want to get your folks on the phone. You're not selling the full opportunity. You're really selling the phone call. So I think tailoring and anchoring your message strategy to that goes a long way. Things that make a really effective outreach or getting higher response rates: brevity, making sure your message is easy to read, flattery or personalization, and then one simple call to action. We see all these things have the best impact. So brevity, talk about subject lines, having really short subject lines, making sure the message is also really short. So an iPhone will show about 120 words on one screen. So you don't want to, if your message is too long, they're not going to spend time scrolling through that. I think if you're asking your audience to do more than like scroll through like 2 screen lengths, probably too long. I also think making sure your message is easy to read, super important. I find, especially on mobile screens, easy to read is bullet points. So if you're trying to pitch or really sell them on the client or the call, structure your value props, what you're selling in a bullet point format. What else does your team do?
The 2 screen scroll is key. It can get very deceptive when you've got giant monitors and you're looking at your email and you're like, God, that doesn't look really long, or and you just keep writing, or you cut, copy, paste to get information to fill the space. You don't have to fill the space when it gets down to this. Saying what you need to as in few words as possible is really important. So keep it simple, stupid is a great one to stick with there. We'll even, if you are going to cut, copy, paste, one tip I'll toss in here is I even change the formatting of my copy pasta. This way, I'm not trying to sell it as something that I just typed. If I'm going to copy pasta, I'll italicize it, or I'll change the color and kind of give it a little bit of formatting to just let them know, like, hey, here's the blurb, and then just have my text and my formatting a different way.
Yeah, so I like that. We also seen, just like subject lines, anything you can do to personalize that to each individual is going to increase that response rates. Gem allows you to do that at scale with another token that we call the reason token or extra tokens. We actually allow you, there's a couple different places that you can do that. And that allows you to, for each individual, as you're going through and sourcing and adding people into a sequence, to write a couple, 1 or 2 sentences that are specific to that individual, Gem will automatically plug into that sequence message for that individual. So this is different for every single candidate you're reaching out to. James, I know your team does this quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. We definitely utilize this. So if, as the team sourcing and they see something, maybe they want to call out, they're on the swim team or some sort of hobby or a white paper that they have on their LinkedIn profile, something that we want to insert into our message, but we're not going to go back to that profile to remind ourselves what it is. When we're here in the moment, we use that sidebar extension, type it into their profile, or copy something out of their LinkedIn profile, paste it in there that we can use in our outreach. That lets them know we're really just trying to convey and build trust that we've put eyeballs on their profile. We want them to think that we are doing this no looking, no scanning type of sourcing.
Yeah, establishing that credibility in that first message is key. Awesome. And then the last thing, simple call to action. I think, again, remembering that your audience is most likely reading that message on their cell phone. I like to think if your call to action should be something that they can respond to with their thumb. So for example, are you available to chat during your lunch? Yes, here's my number. Sequences that include multiple call to actions. Are you available? If not, do you have referrals? If not, check out our website. If you're telling them to do 3 things, they're not. Give them one simple thing for every message.
Decision fatigue for sure. Keep it simple, that one call to action. If you are a fan of that automated, here's my calendar, find time, you can do that. We test both. Sometimes we want them to, like, hey, give us a time you're free to chat.
Yeah, I like it. All good ideas. Cool. Other tips. So as James and I were talking through some of the things that his team does really well, we wanted to kind of ask him to share some of the other really interesting best practices that he's figured out using Gem.
Yep. So when I was first chatting with Sean, I brought up bounced emails, and I saw him give a little like, okay, I'm listening. Tell me about bounced emails. So I actually get really, really excited about bounced emails, and I have my team get excited as well. Why is that? Well, if the email's coming about bounced, then I know that person isn't hearing from any other recruiters. And that is an audience that I want to engage with, because their engagement to my message is going to be falling on fresh ears. We actually go into the emails that show up as bounced, and we flip those to either LinkedIn InMails, or we spend extra time to find additional emails for those profiles. So we get really excited about those actually. Cool off period, as we mentioned, these people are receiving emails on a regular basis, InMails too for that matter. So we don't want to hit people up over and over and over. We're able to go into the tool and sort and search on people that haven't heard from us in 3 months. Use that timing feature so that we're not just beating up on them all the time and leaving them with a bad employment brand taste in their mouth, if you will.
Yeah.
And then starting to get into some of what you were mentioning earlier, Sean, is that SOBO feature and utilizing our client's brand. We utilize that a lot.
Yeah. So again, SOBO stands for send on behalf of. So Gem allows you to configure outreach, either your first one or some of the follow-ups, to actually come from someone else. So they can come from another member of your team. You can also set it up so that the email comes from maybe a hiring manager or yeah, you can get pretty creative with how you leverage this feature, and it has a big impact on response rates. I think what you said earlier, like bringing in more people into the conversation or the outreach campaign shows flattery, shows increased interest, and that's going to get a candidate, a lot more interested and probably excited to respond and have a conversation. So I think it's a really, really great tactic.
Yeah, we use it internally, saying maybe they don't want to hear from a James, maybe they want to hear from a Danny or a Lilia instead. I don't know that, but we get to use that feature. Maybe they want to hear from a recruiter and a hiring manager, so we can send on behalf of hiring manager and manage some of those messages so that they don't have to. Or maybe the manager wants to create a second email account just for this campaign or initiative, so we're able to utilize that. It's great. We love it because we get to see activity from all our clients' domains and how different stuff is performing. So yeah, we utilize it a lot.
Yeah, I think actually your ability to show clients how almost like brand attractiveness based on response rates from those messages, I think is really, I thought that was a really interesting tactic you shared. And you do that with some of the outreach reporting with Gem. You also shared you do a lot of A/B testing. How do you guys use that?
So we A/B test. So we do want to make sure we're using really clean hygiene when we're naming all our sequences and our projects. But it does allow us to say, okay, when we get to say 200 or 250 outreaches, how's one subject line performing over another subject line, or is the shorter compressed sequence outperforming a longer drawn out sequence? So we A/B test a lot, mainly on subject lines, but it allows us to also test how InMail is performing versus email, so we can see which channel is right, and it changes from audience to audience. So if you're not testing it, then you don't know. You're kind of in the dark, and you don't know what knob to turn or what lever to pull to make it better. And then as far as client reporting goes, this helps us, I like to say, keep a seat at the table. We're able to communicate to our client how many people we're sourcing, how many people we're outreaching to, how's the audience responding, how's that funnel converting into phone screens, or we'll even track sentiment. So we'll put it on, right? Are we getting positive replies? Even if they're no's, people can say no or unsubscribe or anything like that, versus people that are like, thanks, appreciate it, but not right now. So you can use it to track sentiment and a little bit of brand impression out in the world.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Awesome. Cool. So I think we've got a couple of questions in the chat, which is great. Before we go into the questions, if you are interested in getting a kind of a deeper dive or deeper look at Gem in action and how to set up sequences and outreach reporting, let us know. The poll will have someone follow up in the next couple of days. Let's do that. Let's start.
All right. If you could just put your answers here, just a couple seconds. And then we'll hop into the Q&A. And in the meantime, if you have any questions for us, please drop those into the questions box. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and close this and jump over to Q&A.
Awesome. Cool. Looks like we got one question. When you say the system automates follow-up, can it detect when there's responses so that follow-up just don't go up? Yes, very important. Yeah, so Gem does automatically detect when there is a response, and it will pause the sequence or pause any further follow-ups to go out to that individual. There's also an integration with Calendly. So if you are using Calendly to schedule interviews, if someone schedules an interview via Calendly that doesn't actually respond to the sequence, that will also pause the follow-up stages from going out to that individual. Yeah, good question.
Okay, great. Next question here is, can you use Gem for business development, and how would it work in that case?
Great question. Yes. Actually, a lot of our staffing customers do use Gem for business development. Yeah, James, I think your team does. How does your team use that?
We absolutely do use it for business development. We since Gem came out many years ago, it has it does go after personal email a little more than work email. So just know that you'll want to make sure that you're going after work email. I have seen people biz dev on personal. I tend to steer away from it a little bit, but yeah, we do use it for biz dev. Absolutely.
Nice.
All righty, next question here is, what are the out-of-the-box subject lines that perform well?
Say that one more time, sorry.
What are some out-of-the-box subject lines that might perform well?
Okay. I'm scrolling over to some.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Asking questions. So questions, open-ended questions work well. What else? Like Sean was saying earlier, getting one of those tokens in there, referencing the company. Or referencing part of the job title. So this is where I encourage you to get a little bit clever and shorten up, either abbreviate or shorten, or I like to put, TLDR in my subject lines for my software engineers. It's anything that is their vernacular or verbiage for that audience, I think helps a lot. As I mentioned, I like dad jokes, but it really depends on the audience, I think, on who you're going after.
Pretty good idea.
Sean,
I like
you got any favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything with token, first name token, I like the idea of using questions. So like, hey, first name, what's next after company name? Question mark. Super easy. That gets them thinking and gets them, I'm sure, certainly catches their attention.
I even use Gem's day of the week token, which is like, hope your Wednesday isn't overwhelming, or or hope this isn't disrupting your Wednesday, right? It lets them know that, wow, I'm typing it today and I'm cognizant of what day of the week it is and that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, more personalization is always better.
All right, thanks. Great ideas. All right, what is your take on using SMS in outreach?
Texting. Yeah. So you are able to set up sequences in Gem that are text sequences. It does require that you have the candidate's phone numbers in the candidate profile. I think it is incredibly effective. I found talking to customers that it's prefer to rely on text sequences when it's more about re-engaging campaigns. So when it comes to, after you've waited for that cool off period, or maybe you talk to a candidate, they said no for a particular opportunity, but you've established that rapport, that relationship is there. Then sending the sequence, I think, is more accepted and definitely gets much faster response rates. That's for sure.
I would second what Sean said. I stay away from texting cold people. It seems to have kind of a sour taste. But if, say, it's someone that's in your system or in your ATS and you're like, hey, is it okay if I follow up with you on this role in 3 months or that type of thing, and you've got some sort of tickler or note in there, you'll get that response really quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question here is, do you have any best practices for reaching out to diverse talent?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yes. So I'm going to give a plug for a side tool. We use Textio. So we try to optimize our messages for different audiences. And I think this is also, if you have diversity on your team, this is where the sending on behalf of can come in handy. So getting to send from different sides of the house helps a lot. Those are some of the low-hanging fruit that we go after.
Yeah, and the outreach reporting in Gem does allow you to break down like open rates and response rates based off of like gender, race, so that those analytics are available within GEM.
All right, another question here, and it's for James specifically. What are your favorite GEM features for your team?
If you haven't picked it up, probably my #1 favorite feature is the SOBO feature, so sending on behalf of. Anytime we get in with a new client, we're getting an email address on their domain. Even if it's for one of our recruiters or team members, we're still sending from their domain. We try to minimize how much storytelling or how many hands are involved or any of that sort of stuff as much as possible. So we're really trying to keep that time and that efficiency good. The other one I probably use, I have yet to find a sidebar extension in Chrome that is jam-packed with information, is GEMS. So not only do I see their like sequences, multiple sequences that so say I'm staring at a LinkedIn profile, I'm seeing all the sequences these people are in, different projects this person's in, different extra fields this person could have, the 5 email addresses this person could have. I'm really, I mean, that side of my screen is so utilized with that Chrome extension that we run it on everything. Yeah. Did they ask for 3?
They asked for as many as you're willing to provide, James.
Many as willing to provide. Okay. The other one that we use a lot is GEM's bulk activity. So we do a lot of work with CSVs. Their CSV mapping is very clean and easy. So we work with a lot of lists. So we'll pull lists from different sites, different tools, but everything lives in GEM for us. So it's a nice place for us, working with so many different clients to kind of all come back to this central home place for us.
Okay, awesome. Next question is, does the platform come with built-in suggestions for subject lines, outreach scheduling, things like that?
It's come built in with suggestion. The platform does not come in with suggestion. We do make it really easy to automatically put tokens in very quickly, and then make it very easy to set up A/B testing in your outreach reporting, so you can very easily see what is working and what isn't, almost live. So we'll show you open rates and response rates within the outreach stats. That reporting is updated live, so you can very quickly see what's working.
Yep. For the people looking for subject lines, there's a number of AI writing tools out there now that I would encourage you to go check out that can help you if you get that writer's block. I do all the time. I'm great at editing, but sometimes getting it on paper first is where I need a little extra lifting. So yeah. Some of those tools can be great because you can give it a little bit of content and it can do some of that creative writing for you.
Yeah. The other feature that a lot of users will use, especially when they're putting together a sequence for the first time, is the send me a preview. So it allows you to you can send yourself an email for every stage of that sequence, so you can see what it looks like either on desktop or on mobile before it goes out.
Yeah. And you can do that at any stage too, so it doesn't have to just only be the first stage. You can preview. You want to preview it at every.
Super important.
Alrighty. Next question here is, any other good places to source talent besides LinkedIn?
Lots. I've sourced people out of Amazon book reviews. So go to JavaScript Books, look up the reviews, and triangulate the names back over to GitHub, Stack Overflow, LinkedIn. I've also done it off YouTube. Under commenters, so say someone's doing DevOps shareback on Chef or HashiCorp. Anytime an audience comes together in some sort of small community, that is a sourcing pool for me. So let's see here.
Good, yeah. I like that. It was creative.
All right, great. Another one for you, James. What are some key staffing trends or challenges you foresee for 2023, and how are you preparing your team?
Yep. So I've been keeping them. So since this instance of Gem, we've had over for 2.5 years almost. And it's really neat to see our industry has some great trends that we get to follow, right? The holidays slow down. We've got the, first, second week of January is just this like bumpy, muddy water, and then everyone gets back into gear and it takes off again and it kind of evolves around school years a little bit, right? We get that lull in August, everyone's in vacation mode, and then boom, back up until Thanksgiving and Halloween and that stuff. Trends for 2023, I am spending more time on the other channels, like, Sean was talking about text messaging or in mailing, it seemed like we had a lot of people just beat up on LinkedIn in mails for a while, right? Everyone was just throwing all their energy and time at that. And then people are like, ooh, email. I'm getting more responses over here. And so there's kind of been this shift over to email. Now, to be honest, people have just gone bombarded with email. So starting to experiment with different channels, like the texting, email, in-mail, text, how are the different ways that I can touch and engage? Those are some of the things I'm considering and looking at for 2023.
Okay.
All right, thank you. James, another one for you is, what is your advice for fellow staffing leaders regarding evaluating tech and tools to help your agency and firm be successful?
So this is definitely staffing tech stack talk. Let's see, that's a big question. We might have to sidebar that one a little bit, but depending on how everyone, right, we're all set up differently. Some people are just one client, some people are in multiple clients. We were kind of early adopters of Gem. Gem really kind of focused on enterprise and single domain users, and we were kind of like, oh, we can use this SOHO feature and use it, to our advantage in other ways that people haven't seen yet. So and they've been super supportive of that. They haven't changed it or changed any of the requirements or any of that sort of stuff. So we like it. I kind of talked about earlier about how we get to have all our domains for domains AA clients in all these different places, but we still get to live in a kind of a centralized hub. So Gem's one of them. LinkedIn Recruiter's one of them. I always have a couple test seats on HireTool or SeekOut, other places. So Sean doesn't know this, but I'm always testing the sequencing tools on HireTool, and I'm testing the sequencing tools on SeekOut and others. But so I want to know where I'm getting the best information from, and that's why we keep hanging out here. Starting to consider what I can do to give my recruiters time back. So my recruiters and sourcers, what's the most expensive thing they've got? Eyeball time. I want in evaluating talent and getting that talent to the client. So anything I can do to help them be more efficient is stuff I'm considering. So am I recording the screens and converting them to text? Am I so that they can submit screens faster? Am I splitting up sourcing and recruiting so the recruiters can move as fast as they can and keep clients happy, and the sourcers can do what they do best and the research and find profiles? Anything I can do to let people do what they do best, I'm trying to implement. I hope that is a good enough answer there, but happy to sidebar that one and talk shop if you'd like.
Awesome, thank you, James. It looks like we have one more question here, and it is, what are some best practices or tips for having a good relationship with your clients?
So I die by data. So if I can't tell the story, then I don't deserve the seat at the table. So I use data to tell my stories. How many people were, since we are an RPO firm, right? I wanna let the client know how our hours are being spent. how we're sourcing, how we're recruiting, how we're sequencing, and how all those efforts are coming in and converting to screens and interviews and eventually hires. So I do that from all the beginning, from the top of the funnel all the way through, so I can show them what the throughput is. My engineering leaders love that. They'll eat it up all day. And eventually, they don't need to keep hearing it. They just, it helps me establish trust with them and let them know where we're spending our time and effort.
Love that.
All right. Thank you guys so much. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much to Jem and to Sean and James for joining us today and for the excellent presentation. To all of our attendees, thank you so much for being here. Keep an eye on your inbox for the recording and the slides, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.